Good morning, Predicted Trades family. Hope everybody's doing well. Alright, let's dig into some prep here. So far this week, we had that gap up and go, and then brought it back to the daily 21, daily 8 yesterday. We held that daily 21, daily 8. That was the overall thesis going into open yesterday, was if we get dips looking for these two moving averages, these squeeze bottoms to hold. We got a strong push out of the gate, then that pullback to the 21, and some consolidation closer to the highs before taking off from that 39.22 back to this 39.41. Hopefully you can see how my key levels and these daily moving averages and these squeeze tops helped us to navigate yesterday. And overall, everything, remained quite bullish. If we look at our 45 EMA chart, the 45 EMA from all intraday time frames, you can see yesterday we were just pulling down pre-market, testing the 1 hour, 2 hour, and we used that all day as our support to take off and move away from those MAs. Now we're getting our gap up, like I talked about, midday yesterday. I said if we hold here and we start to push to new highs at the end of the day, then it lends to a gap up into tomorrow. So we're gapping up into these next key levels. We can see our 15 and 30 minute MAs are catching up to this 39.41. So a dip back there is basically filling the gap, testing MAs before continuing higher. So overall, on today's session, looking for us to hold near this 39.41, 39.38-ish. If we start to lose that, then it's also kind of close to yesterday's highs before the end of the day, right? If we start to lose that, then we're talking back to 39.22 and to test these MAs again, now that they have moved up. Yesterday, they were, right around 3,900. And we held them and moved higher. Today they're up a little higher, like 39.15, 39.17. So again, if we were to dip and lose that, our MA's up here, that 39.41, we're going to fall to this 39.22 and maybe test this 39.15. If that starts to give out, then we're going to get a more aggressive slip, just based on how MAs work. We do have a little bit of a sliver of a 1 hour squeeze that's still intact, or it might have fired. Let's see. There we go. Alright, so 30-minute squeeze that it says is starting to fire. A 1 hour squeeze is slowly starting to form. Just above that, kind of close to 39.58. Overall, we've got our pre-market high, our pre-market low, just like every day. Yesterday we had those set. They very quickly took out pre-market high. They even gave a little pullback to it and went higher again. Although actually, never mind. Either way, point being, we are probably going to open in between this pre-market high around 39.55, pre-market low around 39.34. So let's see if we're going to take a little dip first to potentially fill the gap back to this 39.41 before heading higher. Overall, looking for that to try to hold at the very worst this pre-market low, which is right near that first high of day yesterday. If that starts to give out, then it's back to this daily 50 at 39.22, and then, like I said, potentially that 39.15. We do have the daily 8 crossing over the 21. Sometimes when they cross, it can create a magnet. So we've got our targets to the downside if we do start to slip past filling the gap. But if we can hold the gap, if we slip down to fill the gap, if we can hold there and start to work our way back up, looking to get through this 39.60, get up to this week's high around 39.73, and then try to make a push to that daily 200, which sits at 39.93, 39.96 key level, and 4,000. So that's the target zone above. If we can get going above 39.61, turn it into support, take out this week's high, and push further. And we do have the top of a daily squeeze sitting just above 4,000. We also have our trend line from the highs of last year. Let's see, just to get an idea, let me switch this to a daily, should get it done. And we'll let that fill in. But overall, about to be opening at the highest point that we've opened this week, right? Opened near 39.40, opened much lower yesterday. So this is about to be the highest open. And we already know we had some sellers sitting. So let's see if we've found our support, right? We pushed away from moving averages, ran into some sellers, so we come back to those daily moving averages for liquidity, for buyers to find them again, to try to make another attempt at getting through. So let's see if we've found enough momentum, if we can hold that 39.41, start to push and take out this week's high, giving out 39.41, 39.34, pre-market low, starts to spell a slip back to test these moving averages again as they are stepping up to provide a slightly higher support. There we go, we got this daily in place. All right, so yeah, that trend line from highs of last year, sitting a little bit above 4,000, and really not too far from, that 40.20 daily squeeze top. So we have plenty of resistance up here. Let's see if we have the momentum to get up there, or if we've already set in our high of week. All right, that's good for ES. Let's move on. And just to keep it fresh, I'll switch over to SPY first, just to translate that same thesis into SPY's levels. Yesterday we did a prep in our Discord room instead of doing it on YouTube. But during that prep yesterday, I started drawing some support on different names as we were walking through prep. So as you can see, the support was encompassed with those daily moving averages, held at pre-market, pushed up to the daily 50, back to the daily 21, and then pushing higher. So overall, same thesis, want to hold pre-market low, that daily 50, which are much closer to each other on SPY. On ES, the daily 50 was further below the pre-market low. And they can be a little different between SPY and ES. So either way, looking for that pre-market low, that daily 52 hold around 390. We closed around 390 and a half. So basically 390, 390 and a half, the support. If we do slip back to fill the gap, our pre-market high is near 392. If we can push through pre-market highs, looking to get up to this zone above that we arrived at on Monday and then sold off from, 392.66, 393 and a half, and then the next zone above that, 395, 395.8. Got a few key levels up there. And if we start to lose that daily 50, then we'll come back to test this 388 and a half for sure, because that's where we spent a lot of time yesterday before pushing back off of it. And should that 388 and a half give out, then it is back to test this zone again. I'll cover the indices. NQ was definitely strong yesterday. NQ's trying to kind of be a leader to the upside. As ES got back down and tested that MA that it settled at the 21, I believe. NQ is settling at the 8. Didn't quite get there, and so overall relative strength in the NQ, having a little gap up. Just the overall premise on everything is going to be what's that pre-market low, pre-market high. Let's keep an eye on those. Coming back to fill the gap would be retesting this 280, 11,280, as we're sitting a hair above 300. So looking for that 280 to hold on a pullback. If that starts to give out, then we want to target 240 pre-market low, and back to this daily 21, which is just a hair above 200. We also have a 1 hour squeeze bottom right there. And our 30-minute is pretty close to pre-market highs and lows. So work that range. But overall, if we can hold, ultimately, let's just call it like 250 or that 280, and start to make our way through pre-market high, looking to get up to 350, this week's high, and then the daily 50, which sits at 11,412, and then that big cycle level 11,500 above. Not a huge gap up, so plenty left in the tank to get up to that level. Ready. Ready had some really good relative strength yesterday. I mean, as you can see, it was pushing continually while the other indices were just kind of chopping or going sideways at times. So definitely strong rotation into small caps, set new highs above Monday, and already arriving back at the daily 200. So first index to get there could be maybe a little precursor to the other indices trying to make that push, and ES not too far. In fact, opening up where we are, we're well within an ATR to get to the daily 200 today. So watch that pre-market low on the ready, 1830. Looking to hold there. If we start to lose 1830 and 1825, right? It's kind of where we topped out. I know our wicks are a little higher, but basically just looking at support and resistance. This is now your support. Basically from that 826 to 1830, that is now your support. Looking for that to hold if we have a dip, and to try to push higher through pre-market highs around 1841-ish. And looking to push up to 1850 and hit the top of this daily squeeze. If we start to lose that 1826, then we're likely going to pull back to this daily 50 around 1820 and try to hold there to set a higher low. Should that 1820 start to give out, then we're talking back to the daily 8, daily 21 around 1800. And basically where we held yesterday's lows on the ready. YM. And I'm sorry, I should, before I go too far into this, pull up our economic calendar just to say we have CPI tomorrow. Today we have nothing on the books today. So hopefully we should be clear for price action momentum to carry. Tomorrow we have a Fed speaker, we have CPI, we have jobless claims, and then some more Fed speakers at the end of the day, the federal budget. So big day tomorrow. I'm hoping that doesn't lead to a sideways choppy day today. I'm hoping we can get a push into CPI, maybe set new highs a week. It just makes sense, if the results or the reaction are negative, why not take it higher before heading lower, right? Got to get up to get down. And then, if let's say the results are favorable and we see a strong reaction to CPI, it also makes sense to try to rally into it. It kind of leaves people behind, so that if you're not in it yet, you're missing the move, or at least there's a lot of FOMO, and then that leads to a lot of the same psychological games they love to play. So either way, we got CPI tomorrow, big one. And then on Friday, we've got a little import data, and then University of Michigan at 10 a.m. Looking into next week, we've got some retail data, some manufacturing on Tuesday, some retail and beige book next Wednesday, jobless claims. All right. So, on YM, I'd say at times YM was a little bit of what was selling off and pulling the market back, but overall did get up with everything else and slowly making its way up to test 33,950 and approaching this 34,000 again. Not too far from this week's highs. If we can continue through this week's highs, getting up near 34,400 and 34,500 is arriving at 2-day and 1-day squeeze tops after coming off of the bottom. Overall, we got our pre-market lows down near 33,830. Looking like we kind of closed around 850. So that's where your support sits. If we do have a dip, looking for that 830, 850 to hold as we're pushing through 950 and right at pre-market high right now. So if we can keep going to the upside, looking back to this week's highs, get back over 34,000, start to make the push to like 34,250 on the way to 34,400 and 500. But if we start to reject, come back, want that ultimately 33,800 to hold. 800 up to 850 is kind of your support. If that 33,800 starts to give out, then we'll likely slip back to test that daily 8, which has stepped up, kind of like at the base of where most of yesterday's price action, right? We got that one wick below it. But basically, if that 800 gives out, I'd be targeting this 630, 650-ish. Cover Apple. A little messier, was definitely part of the morning's downside, but just hit that 131 key level, drifted back to our zone below and the daily 8, and then scooped right back up. Now looking to open above that 131 where we rejected yesterday. Ultimately, let's see if it can hold where it closed around 130.75, pre-market lows around 130.5. So that's your little zone of support. If we do have a little dip, looking for that 130.5 to hold, 130.75. Get back above 131 and continue to push. First target, this 131.75 where we rejected over here, and basically pushing through this squeeze top 1 hour to get up to a 2 hour, which sits at our next zone. So ultimately, like if we can hold 131, looking to get up to our next zone at 132.6 where the daily 21 sits, and 133 back near Monday's highs at 133.5. Let's see if Apple can play ball today. AMD. Chips. Very strong on Monday. Didn't even need to get back to the daily 21. Already pushing back near Monday's highs. Overall, let's see if the pre-market low and the 68 price level can hold. With the goal of getting through this week's highs, 69.5-ish, get up to 70 and 71, where it looks like the top of a daily squeeze is sitting. If we start to lose that, excuse me, pre-market low, 67.8, we want to target 67, and 66.5-ish where the daily 21 will be sitting. But if we can continue to the upside, yep, 71's where the daily squeeze top sits, 72.3 the next key level. Amazon. Was very strong yesterday. Overall held that zone and the daily 21 and pushed up through Monday's highs and still pushing. Arriving at the daily 50 and the key price point here at 91. If we have a little resistance there and come back wanting to hold basically 90, we closed a hair below 90, was kind of yesterday's high. So looking for that to hold. If we can push through 92, we have a daily squeeze top at 92.5. And the next Keltner at 93.5. If we start to lose that 90, we want to target 89, kind of the last spot we bounced. And the highs from Monday, that consolidation. Should 89 give out, and then we're probably talking about potentially engulfing yesterday back to the 21. Interesting gap down yesterday on BA, but then right back up and trying to push for more. Still remaining a very strong name. Hasn't quite made it to the next zone above, but that's the target for this week. If BA is going to continue to remain strong, and did a great job holding this 206. That's kind of your floor. If we do try to go back to fill the gap. I'm going to skip to Google. Oh, great push on Google yesterday off of this zone. And coming up to knock on the door of the next zone, 89. Let's see if it can hold. Filling the gap back to 88.5. At the very worst, 88.25 pre-market lows. And basically, I'd just say 88. As long as we're holding 88, that daily 8, daily 15, sitting right there. Looking good to try to continue. Looking to get through this 89, 89.5, get through this week's highs around 90, and maybe start to push up to last week's highs around 91, and the daily 50 sits up at 92.5. Let's go to Meta. There we go. Sometimes I like to do this, connecting a tighter trend line from lows and then a kind of a looser one, just to say that we are arriving at what has been sending us higher on a tighter time frame. We did slip that pre-market yesterday, then shot right back above. So basically, if we can't hold this first trend line and we start to give out 130, 130 and a half, 130. Then we're talking about coming to retest this trend line and starting to engulf yesterday. But overall, holding this trend line and above 130 and a half at open sets up for a bounce to get back up. I don't like that it's the only thing gapping down while market's gapping up. So not loving this name, but like yesterday, it did gap down a little hard and then got right back up. So keep an eye, even though it's gapping down. If market starts to push first, then we could see Meta get up to fill this gap. Ultimately, if it could keep pushing, looking to get up to 135, 136. And if it starts to lose that 130.5, 130, coming back to test trend line around 128.5, should that give out back to 127? Microsoft. At the bottom of the daily squeeze, pushed off of it yesterday and pinned between this 230 and 225. But trying to open right near 230. Ultimately, let's see if it can hold, filling the gap back to 228. I'm just going to call it 228 and a half. Pre-market lows near 228 and a half ish, right? So overall, looking to hold this, red line and green line that are marked from yesterday's little wedge here going into close. If we do have a dip, and if we can continue up through the last 2 days highs around 231.3, looking to get up to 232.86, next big key level, and then the daily 15, daily 21 at 235, 236 and a half ish. On Microsoft, Netflix. Very strong yesterday, had that gap down right to the daily 8, right at liquidity, and then ran from 310 almost to 330. A big old mover yesterday, a little gap down, not surprising. Ultimately, you'd want to use Monday's high and the bottom of this consolidation as your support if we see a pullback. So basically looking for 321, 323 to hold on any dips. That is still remaining bullish, just testing recent highs and profit taking before actually getting to 330. Overall target, if we can keep pushing, getting to 330, 333 is the big one, because that finishes filling a very old gap. And then 340 beyond that. We are at the top of a daily squeeze, a very strong name. It may need to take a break if we start to give out Monday's highs and yesterday's, midday flag lows, and give out this 320. Then we're looking to get back to 315 as the target, and then back to the daily 8 at 310. NVIDIA. A bit of a mixed day yesterday. Basically looks like the market, but overall held up well, higher lows. A little bit of a gap down. Ultimately, we want to see it hold. This zone, basically, I want to see it hold 157, 157 and a half, kind of hold the top of this zone. So slipping below 158 is okay. Something below 157 starts to heat it up to get back down to 155.5 where the daily 50 sits. But if we can hold, looking to push through pre-market highs, yesterday's highs around 159.5, this week's highs 160.5, with the goal of trying to get through 162 and then get up to the daily 200 that sits at 166.5. All right. On QQQ, looking for 171.5 to 271.5 to 272 to be our support. Pre-market low near 272. If we do have a little dip, and if we can continue to the upside and get through pre-market highs, which we're very close to, looking to carry up to 275, this week's highs 275.3-ish, and then head up to 276, 277, where the daily 50 sits. Beyond that, the big price point is 280. If we start to give out that 271.5, we also have the daily 21 there, right? So if we start to give that out, then we're talking back to 270 and this 268.5 where the daily 8 sits. But we did a good job holding that yesterday and closing above the 21. A little dip back is fine if we don't get going this morning, as long as we hold here, looking for a push to try to take out this week's high. I'm going to do SPY, Tesla, and VIX, and we'll wrap this up. And yes, I'm skipping over SPX, but it's going to be very similar to ES like I covered. Let's see on us. Oh, I've already covered SPY, so I'm sorry. I'll cover SPX. So yesterday, SPX held the daily 21, got back above the daily 50. We've got a little gap up coming our way, about 12 points. So going to be putting us near 39.30-ish, right? Depending on where we open. So closed around 39.19. That's if we have a dip, looking for that to hold 39.19, 39.20. That's filling the gap. If we give that out, it's back to 39.07 where the daily 50 sits, but that's still near yesterday's highs. So ultimately looking for that to hold 39.07 up to 39.20, kind of the support to try to push us through this week's highs near 39.50. With the goal of getting up to the daily 200 near 39.90, psych level 4,000, and the daily squeeze top. If we start to give out that daily 50, then right back down to the daily 21, daily 8, back down into yesterday's range for more consolidation. Tesla. Definitely a slip down yesterday, but held that 1 hour squeeze bottom, closing near the daily 8, now gapping right back up near yesterday's highs. Basically, kind of a half gap is that 120. And then a full gap fill would be back to that, call it 118.5. Pre-market lows kind of near 118 where that daily 8 sits. So if we start to slip and give out 120, you want to target that daily 8 at about 118. But if we can hold 120 on any dips and try to keep pushing, looking to get through Pre-market highs at 22. Yesterday's highs around 122.75. This week's highs around 123.5 at the top of this 1 hour squeeze. A 2 hour squeeze, sorry. And if we can get through 124, looking to get up to this 126.37. And finally VIX. VIX giving us all the signs of it's fine to head up now. I mean, VIX definitely retreated very hard yesterday. All right. There we go. VIX falling very hard yesterday, getting below 21 after rejecting that 22.5. So for upside today, looking for VIX to stay below 21, 21.1. Basically the last spot we rejected yesterday. So if we do have a little gap fill, a little pullback on the market, I want VIX to stay below 21, 21.1 and start to head back down. So a little gap fill, cause a little pop in VIX, looking for that to reject, and for us to head up on the market, looking for VIX to continue this journey down to 20.5. Almost got there yesterday. And continue the journey all the way down, 20.25 and 20, which gets us down near the bottom of a daily squeeze. Which would be apt. I mean, if we are going to have a push into CPI and maybe a stronger pullback after CPI, whatever, would love to see VIX get down to 20, 19.5, that kind of thing. Another strong day down. Then it lends to a huge reversal in VIX off of daily squeeze bottoms. As everything's hitting daily squeeze tops, it would all line up very well. But if we are going to slip back down into yesterday's range and maybe back down to yesterday's lows, we'll likely see VIX get through 21, 21.10, use it as support to get back to these daily moving averages, which span from 21.4, 21.54 up to 21.78, where the daily 21 sits. Yep, so that's it for prep today. Hopefully this was helpful for everybody. If you're new to predicted trades, definitely come check us out. You can join our Discord room for free and start to learn our system and trade alongside us. For all of our normal members, thanks for tuning in to prep. Hopefully this is helpful. Good luck today, and we will see everybody in the chat.